We're bringing you short clips of the Indian Cricket Podcast episodes now here for you for your consumption. But make sure you go and watch the full episode. Yeah, that'll be nice. You know what gives us a good picture, Dhruv, about where things are going forward? It's the contracts, the annual contracts from the BCCI, which are now retainers. They're now
Yeah.
being called retainers, and
Yeah.
you know what? There's so much that we can talk about here. So let's get going and understand where all of this is unfolding at this point of time. Now, on the screen for people that are listening in, we've got the annual contracts from the previous cycle.
Yeah.
And we are also going to compare that to the contracts that are out for the current cycle, and
Correct.
we'll go from there. So, Dhruv, all you.
Yeah. So I think what's the big understanding now, because I know a lot of people had a couple of questions for you on how the period works. So it runs October to September. So since I started, getting very involved in this, if I look at say 2019 and 2020, the contract period would run from October 2019 to end of September 2020, and then it happens every subsequent year. So then the next for 20 and 21 and 21, 22 that you've put up on the screen now. But the interesting thing, the contracts are always announced, Sumit, as you're aware, in around January. So it almost seems like it's a backdated performance review that we'll see how well you play between October to December of the previous year. And then you get given the contract or the retainership in January and February, which will go all the way till September. So what we're trying to compare now between the last contract period to now is that how this fits very well into the test planning. And what's very easy for us to see if we compare this to what we have right now. You've just changed the screen right now. So that we can tell is, so what's the big difference we've seen is that we've had one player move from grade A to grade A plus, correct? And the reasoning for that is because he's a permanent member in your test team, playing all your formats. So I think what's very evident to me is that this year there's been an even greater emphasis on which players are being picked, why they're being picked, why they're given these contracts, and they form almost the core of at least all three formats of the squad, and that's how the kind of logic has been used.
So if you take a look at, so we're obviously looking at the contracts from the last cycle, and a few of the
Yeah.
names that we see over here that are quite significant. A, of course, you see Ajinkya Rahane sitting in grade B from last cycle, and he wasn't included in this cycle at all, only to then be picked for the WTC final and did well, which is significant. You had Hardik Pandya in the grade C category, who's now been moved up. Um, it's interesting because he's now your T20I skipper,
Yeah.
and is such an important member of the 50
He's moved to
over.
grade A now, hasn't he?
Now he's moved to grade A, as you
Yeah.
can see now. There he is
Yeah.
on grade A. And a few of the other names that are not here.
Yeah.
Hanuma Vihar. Ishant Sharma was in grade B, and now he's completely missing and out of the picture. And
Yeah.
Ravindra Jadeja has now moved to A plus, I think. So Dhruv, here's the retainership from 2022 2023. However,
Yeah.
interestingly, Dhruv, why has it changed from contracts to retainership this year?
I don't know.
That's
I mean,
something that I
the
noticed.
only thing that I would look into that is that you're probably not signing a formal contract. You're just given a kind of a retainership kind of model. And yeah, the fact is you can't call something a contract if it's not a contract, right? That's the basic premise. Also, if you compare this to other countries, namely England and Australia, that also have central contracts, and they were countries that had adopted it before India, the money and the payments aren't very public, Sumit. So we read in the media that Mitchell Stark is a 2 million Australian dollar contract holder and Joe Root is £1 million there, but we don't know what the actual numbers are. With this retainership, what's very important is that we know how much, who earns 7 crore, who earns 5 crore, who earns 3 crore, and who earns 1 crore. Now, while everyone can see the 22, 23 kind of numbers that you've put up and the names, This period now would have run from the 1st of October 2022 and it will run all the way till end of September 2023. Now, in that period from October to December, we knew that a lot of players had done exceptionally well. Guys like Rishabh Pant were brilliant, I mean, until his unfortunate accident in the end of December. However, what's a little exciting, Sumit, and I know you picked this up as well. Uh, Jasprit Bumrah hasn't played cricket for India at all during this period, and he's still been given a retainership. So, apart from those 2 points, I think this list of players that they've picked is even better than what they've done in the last cycle. So, if we were to run grade by grade or player by player, I think this time we have it looks very, very interesting in terms of how all these names are put together.
Yeah, I couldn't agree more. And I think I am incredibly happy for Ravindra Jadeja, who is finally getting his due. I think
Yeah,
for a long time, we made a case for him last year as well that he deserved to be in the A plus category.
yeah,
But to now see him there, being given that respect,
yeah,
to as an all format player, as somebody who's performed incredibly well for India, it's phenomenal.
yeah,
I'm also happy for Hardik, having seen him in close quarters recently,
yeah,
to see him, come up from being a non-contracted player. Remember, he was dropped when he was injured from the
yeah,
central
yeah,
contract list. I think it was in
yeah,
2020,
yeah,
and then move from C to A. It's quite nice. Same with Shubman. He's moving
yeah.
up the ranks. Pretty good to see. So yeah, I think the
And,
only one I
and
think who,
another point,
yeah,
Sumit, that's
what?
been quite interesting is this time these contracts slash retainers were only announced just before the IPL. So they were announced almost by first week of April. I think the IPL had started, and then these names came out just a day before. So
Mhm.
what would have made this very interesting is that probably the BCCI, along with Abhi Kuruvilla, the general manager, and I don't know if the team management, which is the captain and coach, have any kind of input into this. I think it's more a
Mm.
decision which is the BCCI with Roger Binny, Jai Shah, and Abhi Kuruvilla as the general manager. Is that
Mhm.
we'll wait to see how well these players have performed, as I said, in the October to December period before,
Yeah.
and how well and we're going to predict how important they will be from January 2023 to end of September 2023. Correct? Now, what makes things very interesting is that if you now that I'm looking at this list, apart from Jasprit Bumrah, no complaints or questions at all about A plus. I think Jadeja being there is very, very important. And in the grade A, what is almost significant to me with these names? So there's Hardik, there's Ashwin, and just tell me the other three names.
The other three names in the A plus category, right? Just give me.
Not A plus, in A, in A. So Shamir, Rishabh Pant, and Aksar Patel, correct?
Yep, that's correct.
Yeah, yeah, I can see it. I think you just moved the screen out of the way for a bit so I could see it. So
Yeah.
that was my point that
Mhm.
giving Rishabh Pant a contract is interesting because by end of December, it was pretty clear that he wouldn't be available for almost the whole of 2023.
Mhm.
Um, but the rest of the players, there's no doubt at all. I mean, your best spinner, your best fast bowler, and
Yeah.
upgrading
Yep.
your Aksar Patel
Yeah.
from grade B to grade A just
Which
shows
is
that
a nice
he's
touch.
an
Yeah,
important
he's part of
player
the
in your
plans.
test team, in your T20 team, and your ODI team. So
Yep.
your criteria there is very, very clear. And what's good now, this is going to make the discussion even more interesting. So the period from October to December 2022, KL Rahul started to lose his form as a test player. He didn't play any T20 internationals, but he started doing very well at number 5 in ODI cricket. So
Yep.
maybe that logic is that we will move him down from grade A to grade B, which is why he's moved
Mm.
into B. Pujara
Mm.
has managed to retain himself in grade B, the 3 crore category, which is great. Shreyas Iyer, Siraj were all there from the last cycle. But
They were there.
Shubman Gill and Surya got a promotion to grade B.
They've been
And
moved up.
no
Yep.
dispute or debate on all of that at all.
Yep. Yeah. Um, what's interesting also for me is that Shikhar Dhawan's still around. That is
Grade C.
quite. He is still around. He's still a
Yeah.
contracted player, which means they have him in their mind for the 50 over cycle, perhaps at some point, if there is an
I think
injury
it's more
or
because the performance was good. Because, like I said, no, Sumit, this period is backdated. This gets
yeah,
announced every January or every March as it happened this year, but it includes the October to December period of the previous year, which is something I
it
find
includes.
now that I look
Yeah,
at it over the last 3, 4 years, I find it a bit
yeah.
strange. Maybe I
Hmm.
think, because someone asked me this the other day, I think they keep it over that period because that's the Indian domestic calendar and Indian first class calendar. We start October to end of September. So maybe that could be the reasoning, or
Yeah,
yeah, I could be wrong
yeah,
on that. So yeah, so that's one reason, because if you remember, Shikhar was doing so well as a ODI opener towards the middle and end of 2022, and then
yeah,
Shubman has this meteoric rise that you literally,
yeah,
moment Rohit was fit and came back, you couldn't do anything. And I
yeah,
think
yeah,
Shikhar himself has said this in enough interviews that if he was a selector, he would have picked Shubman above him 10 times out of 10 only because of that meteoric rise. So I think that the
yeah.
contracts slash retainerships, I think, are shaping the way how the management thinks and the selectors and the board thinks on how we're building a squad going forward as well.
It's a marker, right? It's a great place for
Yeah.
us to refer to when we want to understand or get
Yeah.
an insight into the mind of
It's
the
a marker
management
of
of the
merit, Sumit.
BCCI,
That's what I always keep telling
and it's a
people,
marker
that
of merit.
your
Absolutely.
BCCI contract value, the 7 crore, 5 crore, 3 crore, 1 crore, is an actual marker of your talent, ability, your performances, your skill, everything. The IPL
Yeah,
auction value is at times a beneficiary of a market value,
your
of an
recent
auction
performance.
value. It's a bit like
Absolutely.
poker.
Yeah,
Sometimes the chips are going to fall in the right place, sometimes they won't.
yeah,
It depends on how much cap space a team has. So that's what
yeah,
makes, again, being an elite Indian cricketer so unique, because
yeah,
these names that we were talking about before we went to the contracts, you
yeah,
potentially earn 15 lakhs to play a test match for India. Now, this is, again, because we went over it in a lot of detail last time, this is the additional income. It's over and above the contract income. So while you have these fixed
yeah.
retainers, every time you're in the playing 11 for India, you get 15 lakhs for a test match, 6 for an ODI, and 3 lakhs for a T20 international. So someone like Rahane, even though he didn't get contracted because he didn't play any test cricket in the last quarter of 2022, and we weren't even sure if he was going to play in 2023, assuming now he goes to the West Indies, he still will earn 45 lakhs for the 3 test matches that he's played, because he's played, although no, he won't earn anything for the test final because we all got fined 100% of the match fee. Yeah.
That's true.
So
That's true.
everyone
That's a
loses, so he's lost that. But
conversation for
but but
another
but
day.
that's what the kind of money you make. So a lot of these
No, and that
cricketers,
rarely happens. That rarely
sorry?
happens as well. So
Yeah,
no, I'm saying that
it really happens.
it
Yeah.
rarely happens. Yeah,
Yeah,
exactly.
but you see where I'm coming from. That if
Yeah.
you, as a cricketer, plan your calendar, and this is something I'm sure we're going to talk about on subsequent episodes. That now, because over this entire 3, 4 year period of central contracts, we now are very clear the period that the BCCI looks at, October to September. We know the month when they're likely to announce the contract, and we know that the main crux of the Indian players are picked in playing 11s for India basis where they end up on the retainership list. So I think that
Right.
helps us in a very big way. And it is, again, a very, very good, transparent, merit based system. So, like I
Yeah.
said, I mean, my favorite point about how it's very easy to determine what a Indian cricketer earns in their on field salary at their central
Yeah.
contracts with the number of games that they're picked in the playing 11, and they get the match fee. So it's a very interesting system how they've got it. Can we go back to the grade
Cool.
C list, because I think we haven't covered that yet?
Sure. Sure.
Yeah,
Sure. Let's go back to grade C in just a moment. There we are. Oh, sorry. Yep.
no problem.
Here we are.
Yeah. So again,
So yeah.
what I noticed over here, there's been one. I don't want to use the word demotion, but Shardul moved from grade B to grade C, and I think
Hmm.
the rationale there is because he's a
That's
permanent member in only one format. If you remember,
that's
there
it.
he
Yeah.
was in grade
Right.
B in the
Yep.
last cycle,
Yep.
right?
Yep.
So he's
Yep.
moved there. Ishan Kishan is now been given a contract because he got a double hundred in an ODI as well towards the end of 2022. So he's now
Yep.
almost seen as a two format player and could be a backup for a test team. Deepak Hooda, who did well in 2020 cricket last year, comes in. Kuldeep, Washington, Sanju, Arshdeep, and Bharat also come in because they've now been backups in their respective format. So I think that what's very interesting, Sumit, if you look at the 22-23 that you've picked, right? So let's go test cricket. So which
Yeah.
will be very easy for someone, right? You look at this
Yeah.
test team, you've got Rohit as you and Rahul as your openers. One's an A
Mm-hmm.
plus and one's a B player. Your backup
Mm-hmm.
opener Shubman is a grade B. Your main players, fast bowlers on the team sheet, your two best spinners, Ashwin and Aksar, are grade A. Your grade A plus is Jadeja. So you can almost pick your best team looking at this. Now, if you look ODI cricket, which is important in a World Cup year, your entire top 4 5 players in your one day team, Rohit, Shubman, Virat, Shreyas Iyer, and then KL Rahul at 5, you have them all between grade A plus to grade A to grade B. And in T20 internationals, where I'm not saying the focus is not important this year, but it's not a very important focus because the next T20 World Cup is 2024. So you might see a lot of players in that T20 international squad who are probably not contracted at all. However, if you look in this cycle with your main test and ODI players, you can see them all here.
That's true, and like we said, it's a marker. It's an absolute marker
Yeah,
for to and a great place to understand where the
yeah,
team is moving and what is it shaping into. But
yeah,
a really important point that you mentioned is that we might just end up seeing a lot of players that aren't aren't contracted
yeah,
in the
yeah.
T20 setup
Because
going
we're
forward
planning
in
for
2020.
2024.
Precisely, and